Hey guys, welcome to Franklin Woodworks. You know, my dad used to say there was no such thing as an accident. Somebody didn't do something they should have done, or they did something they shouldn't have, and when it all came together, something bad happened. Well, I had an incident with my lathe that I wanted to share so maybe others won't make the same mistakes I made. I'll give you a list of what I did do first, then I'll get to what I didn't do. So number one, I built a lathe cart that was so strong and so stiff it was ridiculous. Number two, I put 380 pounds of concrete inside that lathe cart. Number three, I really tried to find the center of this log. I really did. But it was an oval and lopsided on top of that. Number four, I drilled a small hole for the spur center to bite into. I couldn't use a faceplate because I don't have a way to make an end cut on a log this size at a perfect 90 degrees. So the spur center was as good as I could do. And number five, I drilled a large, shallow hole for the live center to bury itself into. So those were all good things to do, and I was really proud of the way I mounted this log into the lathe. But what did I not do? Well, number one, I didn't heed the many things I read about lathes with Reeves drives. For those that don't know, a Reeves drive is two pulleys that can expand or contract, changing the ratio of the motor speed to the spindle. The motor stays at a constant speed, and the speed of the spindle is changed by a lever on the headstock. The Reeves drive on this Harbor Freight lathe has a speed range of about 620 RPM at the slowest to about 2,500 RPM at the fastest. Now, I've only been turning for about 6 months, so I'm pretty new at this. I've turned a bunch of pins, made a few bowls, and turned a few baseball bats. Not for playing, just for conversation pieces. So what's the problem with the Reeves drive? Well, it doesn't turn slow enough. Your lathe shouldn't be walking across the shop when the workpiece is out of round. And my lathe wasn't walking around, but it was definitely marching in place. The second thing I didn't do was stop when I realized this thing was going to vibrate this bad. I figured it would take me about 10 minutes to get the log true, and in my ignorance, I thought dealing with the vibration for that long was acceptable. And number three, I forgot to tighten the tailstock. Now, obviously, a loose tailstock is the reason this log came rolling towards me, and fortunately, the only casualty was my tool rest, my made of pot metal tool rest. So many of you are probably thinking that I exceeded the capabilities of my equipment. You are correct on that point. Just because something will physically fit in or on a tool doesn't mean that tool is capable of handling it. But my real mistake was that I exceeded my capabilities. I bit off way more than I could chew, and the result was bad. I didn't have the experience to foresee the consequences of my actions. I'm happy I was able to learn some things without a trip to the emergency room. Sometimes we get too comfortable in our shops, too confident in our abilities. I've been reminded that my shop is full of tools with sharp, spinny things that are dangerous. And I encourage all of you to keep in mind the limitations of both your tools and you. So what am I going to do about the log? I'm going to buy a better lathe. Well, be careful out there. And there you go.